Imagine if I told you that the secret to breaking any bad habit you've struggled with for years, whether it is late night scrolling, overeating, smoking, procrastinating, or constantly checking your phone, is not about self-control, discipline, or forcing yourself to change. What if the real solution was a 2,000-year-old Japanese method so simple, so effortless, that your brain can't even resist it? Most people fail to break habits because they try to change everything overnight. They go all in for a few days, burn out, and end up right back where they started. But what if you could turn your worst habits upside down using steps so small that failure becomes almost impossible? Stay with me, because in this video you're going to learn exactly how the ancient Kaizen method can help you break any habit permanently without stress, without guilt, and without relying on willpower. Before we dive into the method, let me briefly introduce what we're talking about. Kaizen is a Japanese philosophy that literally means continuous improvement through tiny steps. It's a principle that transformed entire companies, rebuilt economies, and reshaped human behavior one small action at a time. And when it comes to habits, Kaizen is a game changer because it works with your brain instead of against it. Most people think they fail because they're weak, but the truth is that big changes trigger mental resistance. Your brain hates sudden disruption. That's why quitting cold turkey feels like torture. Kaizen removes the resistance by breaking change into miniature actions your mind barely notices, but your life definitely will. In this video, I'm going to take you through how Kaizen works, why it's so effective, and exactly how to use it to break any bad habit you have. Whether your struggle is with your health, your productivity, your mindset, or your daily routines, this method will help you create the transformation you want in a way that doesn't feel heavy or overwhelming. By the end, you'll understand not only how to break a bad habit, but also how to replace it with something better using steps so tiny they're impossible to fail. Every bad habit you struggle with, even the ones you think are rooted in laziness or lack of discipline, actually comes from a simple cycle your brain follows automatically. Cue, routine, reward. This cycle is the foundation of every habit, good or bad. A cue triggers the habit, like boredom, stress, or a notification on your phone. The routine is the action: scrolling, snacking, smoking, or procrastinating. And the reward is the feeling your brain gets afterward, like escape, comfort, or a quick hit of dopamine. This reward is what keeps the habit alive. Most people think they can break habits by cutting the routine, but the moment you fight a habit head-on, your brain reacts with resistance, craving the reward it's used to. That's why sudden change feels painful. Your brain is literally wired to protect the habit. Understanding this psychological loop is crucial, because it shows us that bad habits aren't signs of weakness, they're simply automated responses your brain has repeated for so long that they've become your default behavior. The Kaizen method works because it gently rewrites this loop without shocking the brain. Instead of attacking habits, it dissolves them through tiny, almost invisible changes. Kaizen is a Japanese philosophy that means continuous improvement through small steps. While it's often associated with Japanese industry, its roots go much deeper, reaching ancient principles of gradual transformation. Instead of striving for sudden and dramatic change, Kaizen focuses on tiny improvements that accumulate over time. This method works brilliantly for breaking bad habits because it avoids triggering the brain's natural resistance to change. When you attempt to quit something suddenly, your mind perceives it as a threat, activating stress pathways and pushing you back toward the habit. But when you take very small steps, so small they barely require effort, the brain doesn't resist. In fact, it adapts smoothly, accepting each tiny improvement as normal. Over time, these small actions begin to reshape your identity, your routines, and your sense of control. Kaizen teaches that progress doesn't have to be dramatic to be meaningful. 1% improvement today, another tomorrow, and before long, the change becomes significant. The beauty of the Kaizen method is that it transforms change into something natural and enjoyable rather than something painful and overwhelming. It lets you replace old habits with better ones in a way that feels easy, sustainable, and surprisingly powerful. The first step in breaking any habit using Kaizen is simply becoming aware of what the habit really is and what triggers it. Most people believe they know their habits, but the truth is many routines run automatically without conscious thought. For example, you might think you scroll your phone at night because you're addicted, but the real trigger could be boredom, loneliness, or avoiding tasks you don't want to face. You might eat junk food not because you're hungry, but because stress signals your brain to seek comfort. Kaizen begins by teaching you to observe, not judge. Spend a few days watching your habit. When does it happen? What were you feeling just before doing it? What environment were you in? This awareness alone weakens the habit, because it brings something unconscious into the light. You're not trying to stop the habit, yet you're simply understanding its roots. Think of this step as collecting data about yourself. Once you know the trigger, you can change the routine without losing the emotional reward your brain seeks. This step builds the foundation for gentle, realistic change and prepares your mind for the micro-actions that will slowly replace the habit you want to break. This is where Kaizen truly shines. Instead of quitting a habit immediately, you reduce it by such a tiny amount that your mind barely notices. The goal is not instant perfection but gradual improvement. If you spend 3 hours a day on social media, bring it down by 2 minutes. If you smoke 10 cigarettes a day, reduce it by 1 puff. If you eat sugary snacks every night, remove 1 bite. This might sound insignificant, but it works because your brain doesn't feel threatened. It doesn't deactivate the panic response that usually kicks in. When you try to quit something suddenly, these tiny reductions also build confidence. Every day, you prove to yourself that you can change, and that sense of accomplishment, even if small, creates its own reward, slowly replacing the gratification the habit once gave you. Over time, these small reductions add up. To minutes less screen time becomes 5, then 10, then an hour. 1 less bite becomes a healthier routine. The secret isn't the size of the step, it's the consistency. Kaizen teaches that even the smallest decrease is progress, and when you follow tiny reductions daily, eventually the habit loses its strength and begins to dissolve naturally. Breaking a habit isn't just about taking something away. It's also about adding something positive in its place. The brain always seeks reward. So, removing a habit without offering an alternative creates a vacuum. Kaizen's approach is to introduce a micro-action, something so small it feels effortless, to take the place of the old behavior. If your habit is late-night scrolling, your new action might be reading just 1 page of a book. If your habit is snacking from boredom, your tiny replacement could be drinking 1 sip of water or eating a single piece of fruit before anything else. If you procrastinate on work, your small action could be opening the document and writing 1 sentence. These micro-actions serve 2 purposes. First, they interrupt the old habit loop. Second, they provide a new, healthier reward that slowly becomes more satisfying over time. The key is to keep the replacement action extremely small, especially in the beginning. The goal isn't to overhaul your life overnight, it's to give your brain something better, 1 tiny step at a time. Over the weeks, the positive replacement grows naturally, while the old habit fades quietly in the background. The heart of Kaizen is the principle of micro-commitments. Changes so tiny they guarantee success. When goals are too big, even motivation cannot save you, because willpower isn't strong enough to overcome daily resistance. But when goals are microscopic, your brain treats them as effortless. This removes the emotional weight that usually leads to failure. Instead of saying, "I'll stop eating junk food," you might say, "I'll leave just 1 potato chip in the bag." Instead of, "I'll start working out," you might say, "I'll stretch for 1 minute." Instead of, "I'll write a full page," you tell yourself, "I'll write 1 sentence." These commitments sound laughably small, but that's exactly why they work. Success becomes automatic. You never fail, because the task is easier than the habit itself. And when you succeed daily, even in tiny ways, your identity begins to shift. You no longer see yourself as someone controlled by bad habits. You see yourself as someone who makes progress. This identity shift is powerful and permanent. Eventually, small steps grow into larger ones naturally and without force, making change too small to fail. Turns habit breaking into a gentle, enjoyable process instead of a constant battle. To understand the true power of Kaizen, imagine a student who struggles with procrastination. Instead of attempting to study for an hour daily, he sets a goal to study for just 2 minutes. At first, it feels almost pointless, but within weeks, 2 minutes naturally becomes 10, then 20, then an hour. The resistance disappears because the entry point is small. Another example is someone trying to lose weight. Instead of eliminating junk food completely, she starts by reducing her portion, by 1 bite and adding a tiny healthy food choice like eating 1 carrot stick before her meal. Over time, these small adjustments build healthier eating habits without feeling restrictive. Consider someone who wants to quit smoking, rather than stopping entirely on day 1. He smokes 1 puff, less each day. This may seem slow, but this gradual reduction rewires the brain gently, leading to long-term success. And finally, think of someone addicted to social media. Instead of deleting all apps, she begins by reducing usage by 2 minutes daily. Eventually, the habit loosens its grip. These real-life examples show how powerful Kaizen is. Tiny steps don't just create change, they create change that lasts. Traditional habit breaking methods fail because they demand too much too quickly. They rely on motivation, which burns out, and willpower, which weakens under stress. When you try to change overnight, your brain goes into survival mode, fighting to protect old routines. Kaizen succeeds because it bypasses this resistance completely instead of overwhelming your mind. It works with your psychology, offering gentle, manageable progress. Small steps are easy to repeat, and repetition is what forms new neural pathways. Kaizen also builds confidence. Every tiny action completed successfully reinforces the belief that you can change. And once your identity shifts towards someone capable of improvement, the habit naturally weakens. Another reason Kaizen works is sustainability. Big changes crash quickly, but small changes stick because they don't disrupt your life. They blend into your day. Over time, these micro-improvements accumulate, producing dramatic transformation without the stress or pressure of traditional methods. Kaizen turns habit breaking into a realistic journey instead of an exhausting fight. It's not fast, but it is effective, gentle, and long-lasting.